Today on Sports Central, we cover our next team projection of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Boston College Eagles, a team that went 6-5 overall in the 2020 season. This team had a great 2020 season, as a matter of fact, having an over 500 record. But how will this team be in 2021 is what we're going over here today. We're also going to get over a few players this team will be losing, who they will be returning, and also looking at their schedule for the first time this offseason, starting out with the previous 6 games for Boston College. And this team down the stretch was a great team. I mean, they did have some inconsistencies here and there. They took some losses that certainly shouldn't have been losses, but still, they had more wins than losses, which is certainly a great thing for Boston College. I feel like this team, though, towards the end of the season, they beat Georgia Tech 48-27. They lost to Clemson 20-34, which that is a loss. But this team kept it within 6 points to a Clemson team that was outstanding over the course of last season. So it was not a bad loss there for Boston College. They played pretty well in that matchup, especially for being on the road. They also beat Syracuse then on the road 16-13. They lost to Notre Dame by a couple of touchdowns, 31-45. That was before getting a win against Louisville, 34-27, and they lost to Virginia to finish out the season, 32-43. So overall, this team, I'd say last season was a good team. Like they definitely have a lot of talent on this team in general. And if you look at, they did have some inconsistencies last season for sure, which definitely need to be corrected going into 2021 if this team will be a bowl contending team. But overall, once again, still not a bad season, putting up 6 wins. First 5 games, this team was 3-2. Last 6 games, they were 3-3. So really, this team stayed consistent with how they were over the course of the season. They just had a couple of bad games here and there for sure. Looking at returning production, you do return your starting quarterback in Phil Jurkovec going into next season. And of course, he was a big impact on this Boston College team, putting up just right around 2,600 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions last season. So watch out for him next year for sure. As for the running back position, you return your top running back in David Bailey. Last season, he put up just right around 600 yards and 8 touchdowns. Same amount of yards for Travis Levy. He was the second running back for this team last season, put up right around 600 yards, but he didn't put up any touchdowns in comparison to David Bailey. So David Bailey was the main contributor for touchdowns for the running back position last season. But otherwise, running back position also looks great. As for the receiving core, you got, of course, Zay Flowers coming back, top wide receiver there. Last season, he put up just right around 930 yards, 10 touchdowns. He had a huge impact on this team last season. Watch out for him next year. He's definitely going to be a receiver to watch out for. The return there, wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 with CJ Lewis and, of course, Jalen Gill. Both wide receivers are coming back into next season. Jalen Gill put up just right around 430 yards and a touchdown. Then, of course, CJ Lewis put up 460 yards and 5 touchdowns. So receiving core looks great. They do lose their tight end and their second in receiving yards from last season, Hunter Long. Looking at him, he put up just around 700 yards and 5 touchdowns. He had a huge impact on this team last season, and he's got a very bright future, I can tell you that much. As for the defensive line, you lose 2 on there. You lose 3 linebackers. So on the defensive side, that's really where you take your losses. You lose 5 starters there on the defensive side. But offensively, this team looks really good going into next season. I think the offense will definitely be the strength at Save Boston College next season. It's just a matter of whether or not the defense can come to play. But otherwise, there's a few questionable spots on this defensive side. I mean, if you look at especially the offense looks great. But on the defense, like linebacking core loses 3 there, but the secondary looks really good going into next season. So it's just a matter of whether or not the linebacking core can be able to deal with losing 3 there. But how much improvement could there be for Boston College next season? I mean, this team has got some great return production, so I think Boston College could improve next season. Like, it's just a matter of how much. But of course, 2020 was a crazy season as well, and you do got to take that into a factor. But Boston College all around, I think, is a team that's got potential to definitely be a bowl team, possibly even past that. Like, I could see 6 to 8 wins out of Boston College next season just based off of the returning production, but there's also a lot of other factors that go into play here. If you look at your schedule, though, of course, you start the season with Colgate on September 4th. Then you got UMass on the 11th on the road. Then you got Temple on the road as well. So that's what your non-conference schedule looks like. You also got Missouri there. Don't forget about them. And then you got Clemson on the road to start off your ACC schedule. Actually, no, you do have Temple. Otherwise, Clemson will be your first ACC game, but that's on the road too, so you got to watch out for that. That's going to be a tough game. NC State as well is going to be a tough team next season. Louisville then on the road, and they got Syracuse to finish out your October. As for November, you got Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Florida State, and Wake Forest in that order. Looking at the first half of your schedule, I think you're going to get 3 wins right off the bat with Colgate, UMass, and Temple. All 3 of those games are non-conference games, but Missouri will not be a conference game. That's going to be the tough non-conference game, I'd say, of next season for this team. But Missouri, even them, I think that's definitely a winnable game, I'd say, for Boston College. But Clemson, I hate to say it, that's going to be a loss there. with it being on the road, and I think Clemson's going to still be a great team next season, even though they're losing Trevor Lawrence. Clemson will be just fine next season. They're going to get the win there. You do have a bye week in between Clemson and NC State games, so definitely watch out for that there. But NC State, that will be a close game. I think NC State probably I'd favor them right now, but definitely, yeah, it could definitely be a winnable game for Boston College as well. As for the second half of your schedule, of course, you got Louisville on the road, Syracuse on the road. Both of those games will be close. Virginia Tech's going to be close. I mean, I'd say, honestly, that entire middle section of your schedule is all going to be close games, I think. Like, Boston College could easily go, in that 6-game stretch, they could easily go 5-1, or they could easily go 1-5. It's just a matter of what the skill on this team looks like going into next season. But Wake Forest, that will be a win. So I'm giving you 4 guaranteed wins going into next season. So that puts you basically, you just need two wins out of your eight close games there with between Missouri and Florida State. So and that's what you need for a bowl game at least. But the ceiling for next season will be 9-3 for Boston College. So I'm actually putting the ceiling pretty high for Boston College. I think this team has got a ton of potential, and that's why I'm putting them at a 9-3 for the ceiling. Projection will be 7-5. So I do have this team making it to a bowl game, possibly even going a win past the bowl eligibility requirement. But yeah, 7-5 is the projection next season for Boston College. The floor is going to be 4-8. So that's basically the lowest that I think Boston College could be next season. So there's going to be a wide range for Boston College next season. Usually I try to keep the range between 3 to 4 games, but I had to do 5 for Boston College because, I mean, this team has got a lot of games that could easily go either way, and this team in general is going to be a pretty tough one to predict going into next season. I mean, this team was not expected to even be a plus 500 team last season, and they ended up having a pretty good year for 2020. So, yeah, Boston College has got a ton of potential, but your projection will be 7-5 next season for this team, which, I mean, 7-5, I'd say, is actually a pretty good season for Boston College, if you ask me. So, and with that being said, that wraps up my projection on this team. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Boston College. I do appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys all later.